Next question is from Then Invest the Rest. This is a tough one, but I think it's important to talk about. He said, I was laid off and now I'm eating through my emergency fund while job hunting. And we're sorry to hear that. He says, should I be selling investments to keep up my emergency fund in case I'm searching for a long time? Or how should he think about this moving forward? Because admittedly, this is kind of a question mark time in his life.
Bo, just to set the stage for you, I know a lot of people, this is something to think about when we have brand new retirees. We have to think about, we talk about expanding your cash reserves. And then one of the things that we don't do a lot of content on, but we have processes where we replenish the accounts that are going. I think for somebody who's got an unfortunate, situations happen, like being laid off, you're starting to go through your emergency reserves, and you still got some flex in the system. There's still some slack there, but you can see that just in case, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, think about, you have to do a little bit of personal triage to figure out how dire your situation is. Like when I'm eating through my emergency reserves, does that mean that I'm in a bad spot where I've only got 1 month left? Like this next month, I'm gonna have a hard time making the ends meet? Or is it something where, hey, I like keeping 6 to 8 months and I've slowly started to see that dwindle? And then you got to figure out, okay, well, what do my job prospects actually look like? Am I having a ton of interviews that I'm going pretty deep in the candidate process where it seems highly likely that I'm going to be able to replace my job in the near term? Or is this going to be drawn out? Is this going to be stretched out? Because the way that you're going to approach fixing this issue or satisfying this problem is going to depend on those variables. Because what I don't want you to do is say, oh man, I had an emergency fund. I've been laid off for 2 weeks. I've spent 2 weeks of my expenses. I'm going to go now free up a year's worth of my investments to make sure that I'm covered. That may not be the best situation. But if you are someone who's thinking, man, this is taking a little bit longer, I'm getting a little bit leaner, just like we dollar cost average into the market, just like we dollar cost average into investments, we like to think through dollar cost divesting out of investments. So if you know what your living expenses are and you begin to see your emergency fund tick down, I might start thinking through, okay, is there a systematic strategy that I can put in place where I begin selling some of those investments to replenish my emergency fund? But it's kind of like Goldilocks. I don't want to sell too few and get myself into a cash crunch, but I don't want to sell too much and sacrifice potential future growth opportunity to solve short-term pain. So you have to triage your own situation to figure out, all right, how aggressively do I need to attack this replenishment goal and what's realistic based on where I am in the job search?
And look, I don't want to scare you because I don't want you to go buck wild with it and create a bunch of taxes, obligations and other things while you're already struggling through a situation. But I would think if you have a tie, because sometimes that's financial mutants, we're trying to figure out how do I prioritize this between risk of getting more cash versus the opportunity cost if I just let this money keep working. Because I've even fallen into the access to cash trap. If you're thinking about risk of desperate decisions, meaning that you run through all of your emergency reserves, that is greater than opportunity cost. So you can put your thumb on the scale of the decision making to make sure that you don't run so low that you're like, if I don't get a job this week or next week or 3 weeks from now, I'm going to be in a big problem. I'd rather you be more proactive, maybe do exactly what Bo said is in a systematic way. We go ahead and maybe get you another month or 2 months worth of capital from your investments to kind of give you a little more cushion. But it's all part of that triage. Just balance this. Don't wait until the last minute because it's going to be your friend to think about how do we avoid those desperate decisions that happen if you have to face your financial life without an emergency reserves.
Can I stretch this one a little bit longer? Only because there are just two things, because it's such a hard thing going through being laid off. You have some interesting experiences, both with family members, but even as well as with friends' families who lost a job, was unemployed, and actually what was a very negative moment, a very difficult time, actually turned out to work out okay. So just because this is like a down time doesn't mean that it's going to stay there. There are pauses that can come out of this. Right?
No, I mean, this is why we say, and I know we've pulled it up before already today, but people think the financial order of operations, a lot of times they think it's just going to be a stair step up. No, it's very much going to look like an EKG, or you can have setbacks in life. And I can tell you this is that growing up in a household in middle school where my dad lost his job and lost the company car, and there was a lot of big decisions that had to be made all at once. That was tough for my parents, but me as a child, it was the best time of my childhood in a lot of ways, because my dad was always around. We got quality time together. So just because you're in a season of scarcity doesn't mean that you have to be in a season that can't be full of happiness and other things. I know that probably sounds
counterintuitive,
or even for somebody but I'm telling you, I've lived it and I've walked that life, and there might be some contrarian opportunities in there. So don't be hard on yourself. You've already got a lot of hard life things going on. Don't just assume that means that you and your family and loved ones are also going to struggle. There might be some sweetness in this moment of scarcity.